All right, we got it. Okay. And last Sunday, we had our public meeting. And, we talked about most of the, work that Noah is doing. And, the work that Noah is doing is about building the beloved community. And there is a great example of a community coming together in the book of Nehemiah. Now, the city of Jerusalem was in ruins, and Nehemiah organized people to rebuild. And the scripture from the second chapter, excuse me, of Nehemiah, the 17th and the 18th verse says, "Then I said to them, you see the trouble we are in. Jerusalem lies in ruins, and its gates have been burned with fire. Come, let us rebuild the wall of Jerusalem, and we will no longer be in disgrace." The 18th chapter says, "I also told them about the gracious hand of my God on me and what the king had said to me. They replied, let's start rebuilding." So they began this good work. And so later in the book of Nehemiah, the people start rebuilding. And, everybody took a specific part of the wall to, rebuild in the city. It was the bakers and the shop makers, but they all came together to rebuild the wall. And when we look at results of the meeting last Sunday, and to look at what overall what Noah is accomplishing, it is about building the beloved community here in Nashville. Now, I'm just going to throw out some questions to everyone. What does this scripture have to do with our meeting last Sunday? Were there several people at this meeting that also attended the Noah's meeting last week? All right. So when we look at this scripture, what does this have to do with our meeting last Sunday, or with the works that Noah is doing overall?
To me, that means the important part is bringing people together, and we've all got a bunch of power in the city, but it takes us all to come together and each take a piece of the wall to build it.
Good. Thank you, Anton. Anyone else like to share? What does this scripture have to do with our meeting last Sunday, or with the, what Noah is doing overall?
Part of it reminds me of the roll call. I mean, the roll call was a lot of fun, I thought. And when you call the name of different congregations or groups and people sort of stand up and cheer and say, yeah, we're here, we're a part of this thing. So that's what the one piece of what Nehemiah is to me.
Yeah, because it looks like that is a great example of the community and the community in Nashville coming together.
And Grace is being too nice. She's raising her hand.
Oh my God, am I talking over somebody?
You're supposed to. I know you are. Go ahead.
Okay, all right. I just didn't know that when Nehemiah came, he saw what our destruction was, but he called the people together, and started assigning them in different places. So that's kind of what Noah is doing. We're working on different ideas or in different groups to focus on specific things. But when we come together as a whole, we support whatever those specific things are. Everybody coming together. And so he brought, that's another way he brought the people together. And we didn't bring in the part where he had to defend against the enemy, but in a way that is also what we're doing, because we know there are people who don't agree with the having a beloved community necessarily. Some people are being very selfish about those kinds of things. So we are bringing people together to understand that they do have the power, but also helping people to stand up against the so-called enemies.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else like to share?
I think Margaret's got her hand up.
All right, Margaret.
Just a reminder, it's 2:41.
Got it. Okay,
Oh.
I'll keep it short. I'm just gonna second what my memory for names is so short. The name of the person who just spoke.
Grace.
I really want to,
Grace.
Grace. I want to add on to what she said, because I think it was important that this passage, at least that we led, the Nehemiah was not calling the people together to go fight the enemy. He was calling the people together to rebuild their own community, and that's the emphasis that we always want to have in Noah. So.
Okay. Anyone else before we move on? Okay, and according to if no one else wants to speak, and according with our timekeeper, we're 2 minutes behind. So let's go back and talk about the annual meeting recap. Some of the goals and looking at the commitments from the mayor and just the turnout of the people. Do you have anything, Mike, about what our commitments were from the Affordable Housing Task Force that you can bring up on the screen?
Well, I can show in just a minute the answers that the mayor gave us to our specific questions. But I think one of the things we were going to talk about too is what were our goals for the meeting? I remember a couple of the goals. You all may want to add them, but one goal was to have a really good turnout after COVID. It's like we weren't sure if we could do a big public meeting again right now, but we did. So that was one goal. Another one is to get some specific commitments from the mayor, right? Were there other goals that we had that y'all remember? I think another one is kind of playing off of Shirley's point about Nehemiah. It was to show that we're a diverse group. We wanted to show that this is not all old bald-headed United Methodists. We are a diverse group. So I think we wanted to show that. Any other goals y'all can think of that we really wanted to accomplish with that meeting?
No, I would agree that those were the primary goals, were to get as many people in attendance as we could as possible, which sends just by bodies in the seats or pews, so to speak, that sends a strong message to elected officials that community members are watching and will be paying attention, and they demonstrated that by coming to the meeting itself. And then we always have goals to try to secure public commitments, public statements from elected officials or whoever's there, in this case, the mayor, to particular issues that we had and specific questions that we had. And so we were able to do that around some of the issues, but not all of the issues, but that's pretty standard. Politicians, I think they go to school to learn how to I call it skate and skirt and say a lot, but don't always answer your questions the way you're trying to get them to get answered. But I think overall we did a really good job around that.
By the way, in terms of turnout, we think we had somewhere between 400 and 500 people. We're still kind of counting up the sign-in sheets, and it's hard to tell off of Facebook, because I think we had somewhere between 100 and 150 on Facebook. So that's a little hard to nail down sometimes, the way Facebook does.
But still, that's such a good turnout.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it shows the interest of, people in the community.
Mm-hmm.
And, and not only the community, but, again, what Noah is doing, in the community. Okay.
Were there any other kind of key takeaways that people had? I mean, from the meeting? Any other things that stand out that you got out of the meeting?
The mayor was very defensive. It was like, you should be appreciating me more because I have done so much for affordable housing. Why are you still bugging me to do more?
Yeah.
Because there's more to be done.
Amen to that. Anybody else? Any big takeaways that you got from the meeting?
Could I ask a question? This is Claire. Just as someone who's new to Nashville and to NOAA, how does the turnout compare to pre-COVID times?
Well, it kind of depends. We've had some meetings we've had about 700 people. Others we think we may have had 1,500. There were a couple of meetings that we had that I think we thought everybody did not sign in. So it's somewhere. Our more recent in-person meeting probably was about 700.
It's 2019, yeah.
Yeah. And then our Zoom meeting, last time we did this, we had, I think it was 400 on there. And the time before that by Zoom, we had 700. So does that help at all?
Yeah, thank you.
Sure. Any other kind of takeaways from the meeting? I always feel like part of our job is educating our own folks about what's going on. I have had people talk to me after one of our annual meetings, and they'll say, man, I just learned so much about all these different issues.
One thing, I hate to be Debbie Downer, but I did notice it was sort of bifurcated. Like there was like black and white, but we were missing groups and cultures that I'd like to get involved.
That's good.
Yes.
That's one thing
Very good. Very good.
That's one thing we've talked about, that we really want to find ways to get more immigrant groups involved in NOAA. We have a couple that are sort of on the edge, and we have some good relationships with some, but we do not have members yet. And in Nashville, this is such an international city. That is a major hole in the world.
Yeah, so really developing strategies around that, strategies for making that happen, I think is one of those next steps. And I happen to be having a conversation about that on top of a mountain this weekend, because the pastor of my church has close relationships with 2 or 3 of the pastors from Hispanic churches around town. So he's gonna try to make that connection for me so we can set up a time to talk. But you just, have to, it takes like a working group that will focus on this one task and then come up with real strategies and then ways to implement those strategies to really have the kind of mix in the room that we want our elected officials to see representing our community.
Because I'm still close to a bunch of people at Turk and working through them, but I do think you're right that we need direct outreach.
Yeah.
And then one other,
Yes.
I don't know. I noticed like the Catholic Church was just underrepresented. Yeah, I think we need to not be entirely Protestant focused and also bring in like the Coptic Egyptians and more Catholic involvement to attract immigrant communities.
I think you're right.
Yeah, agree with you on that one.
And
I think we are with Turk as a part of a collaborative venture. Aren't we going to be doing something with them, Nick, around
Yeah.
voter engagement?
Yeah, we are, I think in a couple weeks, doing some canvassing with them. So
Okay.
there's some collaboration starting. And actually, I wanted to add something I took away from the meeting was that the mayor was really, like, I think our questions were framed as you're not doing this, you should do this. But he had a very good way of, well, I've already done that. And of course I will if it was like an ask. But I felt like maybe we didn't put his feet to the fire enough. And I mean, it was tough with, you know, everybody only had a couple minutes. But yeah, I felt like he kind of walked away feeling like, or with yeah, people seeing that he was kind of on our side. In reality, we know he's
Yeah.
been not doing a lot of these things. So
It's good. It's good. It's important. Well, I think the next bullet point, the question is to you all and us, in what way are we in a different place than we were before the meeting? Or are we?
To commit to a couple of things that, you know, what we asked him to. He said yes, and then just kept, you know, justifying what he'd been doing. But you can hold him to some of those commitments because he did say yes.
Yeah. So that gets down to all the follow-up, right, Carlene? It just requires intentional follow-up on our part.
I think we're
Also,
oh, go ahead.
even though you can't really quantify it, just collectively, like bringing people together so you can see faces and it's not just Zoom. I think it is important.
There was a lot of energy in the room. I mean, it was really, that was so good. And to be able to honor Eugene Sabri, who had passed, and to declare that we're taking on an African-American leadership initiative to keep Black churches at the core of what Noah is doing, that was very powerful, I think. Having Eugene's wife there to speak. Anyway, I felt good about the spirit. Maybe the spirit is a better word than energy. The spirit that was there.
One thing I think that helped us, and I don't know how many people were there who were not associated with Noah, but it appears that we did inform and educate some people, and they were impressed that Noah could bring that many. I know Anna Garcia, I was on a call with the network this week, and she was bragging about our meeting and saying at the number of people we could bring post pandemic era. So I think that was good. And a lot of my friends who are not associated with Noah, they were saying that Noah's doing a good work.
All right.
And that's a key. Just as we said, just ordinary people trying to make a difference in Nashville.
Good. Oh, I bumped into somebody from the mayor's office yesterday at a different meeting. I'm spacing on his name right now, but anyway, he said something about the turnout too. He said that was a good group of people.
Okay.
Well, are you all ready you want to look at the questions that we asked the mayor and what we got back from him? Are we ready to do that?
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm going to attempt to share this screen if I can get it to the right thing. That's always a challenge. Hang on just a second here. There we go. All right. Can everybody see that okay? Do I need to blow it up or anything?
We can see it, Mike.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you. Well, here's the first question. The question was basically telling the mayor, there was a little more preamble to than this, but said, in your campaign booklet, Mr. Mayor, you stated the Barnes Fund needs a dependable source of funding that developers can plan on. The mayor's Affordable Housing Task Force identified new feasible sources of dedicated revenue streams for the Barnes Fund. Now, does everybody remember what that dedicated revenue stream thing means?
I don't remember exactly what he said about that. What was the dedicated?
Well, let me give you an example of a dedicated revenue stream. As opposed to money that has to be voted on in an annual budget every year and passed by council. If you have some programs, some like the Arts Commission's work, it gets the its revenue in significant part comes from pennies or certain amounts that are taken from fees and transactions that happen. For example, a long time ago in the state of Tennessee, the real estate transfer tax, which is a tax that's put on any real estate, anytime there's a sale, there was a law that said a portion of that transaction, X number of pennies, were directed to and went to the state of Tennessee's Housing Trust Fund. And that method is something that the Mayor's Housing Task Force in 2021 put in their report to reconsider that for the portion of the fees that come to Nashville. Couldn't you allocate a portion of those fees? Anytime, we don't have a state income tax, but we sure do have a lot of fees that we have to pay for different things. And so it's just something that's automatic. For the Airbnb, for all the Airbnbs in town, there's a fee assessed to those at different points in time. And so of that fee that's assessed, an amount of that goes to the Barnes Fund. It's not a lot, nowhere near what we need, but it's automatic. It's automatic. There's no vote, no nothing has to be done. Whereas right now, where we have been with the Barnes Fund is that we have to wait every year for a mayor to include it or not sometimes in their annual budget. And then we have to wait on council to approve it. So this takes it out of that method and puts it in and makes it much more predictable and better to plan for developers that are doing affordable housing.
Okay,
So what was the have they passed something for dedicated?
Only
Did he answer yes?
some years ago, the Airbnb resolution was passed, supported by the mayor's office to direct monies from Airbnb rentals fees that would go to the Barnes Fund. And there is a resolution, I don't know if it's passed yet, I thought it had, that directs excess monies from the convention center's annual budget surplus to go to the Barnes Fund. And this year that happened, it was $14.3 million. So that would provide some level of funding. But again, we need much, much more in the Barnes funds to really begin to make a dent. So the $30 million, that's kind of the minimum number we're pressing for. And we're not at the minimum number yet.
I think Margaret's got a question. Margaret?
Yeah, I have been.
Right now, we only have two so-called deaded funding for the Barnes Fund.
Okay, Margaret was
Oh,
trying
I'm
to
sorry.
speak, Pat.
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
So there's a I've been coming to Affordable Task Force meetings now for about 6 or 8 months, and I keep hearing about the Barnes Fund. Is there a place I can go that would tell me what's the history of that? What does it do? What happens to Barnes Fund money? How does it get allocated? Because it's obviously very important to affordable housing.
Thank you for asking that.
Yeah.
Yes, there is. And before the end of the meeting, I'll try to drop a link in the chat to do that.
Okay, that would be great.
Just for a quick and dirty definition, the Barnes Fund is the one place that nonprofits can get some money to build affordable housing, and they're able to match it with other sources. So for every dollar of the Barnes Fund that they get, usually they find 7 other dollars. So it really multiplies. And I don't remember the total number of units that have been built right now, but it's a very significant number, but not significant enough. So that's why we keep pushing for more money. So I'll see if I can find that link. Thank you for asking that question.
So we only have 2 quote dedicated sources right now.
Yes.
for the Barnes Fund.
It's not that we only have 2 sources. It's just that they don't add up to at least $30 million. So there are 2 sources, but they don't add up to the amount that we think is the bare minimum of what we need on an annual basis.
So we want more dedicated to add up to the 30
Yes.
million is what
Yeah.
we're looking for.
Right.
Right.
And by the way, Margaret Claire just said she was reading up on the Barnes Fund, and she just put a link in the chat that goes to the nashville.gov explanation of the Barnes Fund. Thank you, Claire. All right. Let me get back to the
Next
I
question.
forgot where
Mike.
we were. I forgot where we were. Okay, here we are. Here's what the mayor said. The mayor said, yes, we're doing it right now, which was a little confusing because we are not doing $30 million of dedicated funding to the Barnes.
Yeah, that's what I was confused about. I said, we're not doing that. What's he talking about?
He's not 100% accurate. And council members noted that. They knew that also. So the next steps with that response is to follow up with the mayor and his key people in his office to request a conversation to clear up the misperceptions and get the facts straight.
Okay. I thought that was really important that Paulette Coleman and Kay kind of called him on it in a sense. I mean, they said that that's not what we're doing right now. So we're going to have to follow up with it. The second question.
Mike, before you go on, can I ask another clarification on that?
Of course.
I've heard several times people talk about the money, the extra money from the convention center, something about a resolution is not passed or we're not sure it's passed. Do we need to get clarification on that too?
Yes.
I don't understand why.
It's been in the works and it's sent back to the Affordable Housing Committee. It's been sent back twice at least to have further modification.
I think the simple version too is, I'm sorry, Kay, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just saying that the simple version of it is the mayor proposed this back when he was talking about the budget. This is something that's not actually in the budget. So it had to be in a separate resolution to dedicate this money from the convention center to affordable housing. And initially we wanted it, and everybody else did, to go directly to the Barnes Fund. So the first wording though that they came up with was it should go to affordable housing efforts, including the Barnes Fund. And the Colby Sledge, one of the key sponsors of affordable housing stuff in the council, was worried about that. He said, I don't know exactly what they've got in mind, but he was a little worried it would get siphoned off to something else, because that sort of thing happens. So he was trying to get in there that it would just go directly to the Barnes Fund itself, because that's been our major tool. And if at some point in the future they needed to change that, well, that's what they have resolutions at council for. It could be changed then. So does that help at all? I'm trying not to make it confusing.
I just think we need to work on that.
Yes,
Follow
yes.
up.
I agree. All right, let's go back to the screen here. We're going to run out of time. Whoops. There we go. So this next question was just about the East Bank plan. And I think many of you all have been following the stuff in the news about the East Bank. It's 300 acres of land right on the edge of the Cumberland. It surrounds the Titan Stadium. And they're talking about some major redevelopment there over the next, probably over the next 20 years. And so we asked the mayor, will you make as your personal goal that 50% of the housing units built on the East Bank would be truly affordable to people? And we specified some income guidelines. And there's a reason that we said that, because sometimes people are talking about, quote, affordable housing that really is not affordable. So we asked the mayor, would he make it as his personal goal that 50% of anything built there that's a housing unit would be truly affordable? And he said, sure, it would be his personal goal. Now, we knew when going into it that he couldn't guarantee us that that would happen. So that was one reason we framed it like your personal goal. But then that gives us some leverage to be able to continue to talk about this. Okay, Mr. Mayor, you said this would be your personal goal. Talk to us about how you want to accomplish that goal. So does that make sense? All right, I need to be able to see people. Does that make sense? Any questions about that? We're trying to sort of put him in a corner a little bit so that he makes a commitment that's a public commitment, and then we follow up on that. Let's see, was that all of the housing ones? Yeah, I think that was all the housing ones there. There's some other good ones about criminal justice and education. And these were in the email that I sent out. There was a link to that. So if you all want to follow up on what our other task forces were doing, that's a good way to do that.
I have a quick question about that, his response to the East Bank development. I remember him saying something like there has to be a deal, like none of this can happen without a deal or without a plan. Okay, yeah. So what did he mean by that?
They've been working, and I'd love to have anybody else chime in, but they've been working on a plan for the East Bank for a couple of years now. It's just kind of getting to the point of getting more specifics, but it's a very general plan. In other words, at this point, there's not specific developments identified or anything, but the Planning Commission has adopted this very general plan, and a lot of it is going to hinge on what happens with the stadium. So what I took from what he was saying is that, you know, we've got to look at this whole thing all together. If we don't have the whole thing together, and I don't know if that was really an argument for a new stadium. I'm not, you know.
I took it to mean that.
Okay. But does that help at all, Claire?
Yeah. And so the idea with the new stadium is that would generate revenue for the city that could then make affordable housing possible, or what's the logic there?
I think the logic is just that I'm not sure I can adequately explain it. Kay or anybody else?
I'll try. It comes down to the land use and the implementation of necessary infrastructure work to make possible the kind of redevelopment that people want to see in that part of town. And right now, the Titans lease about 100 acres. They have under a lease about 100 acres of public land, and a significant part of that 100 acres is asphalt parking lots. And so what the mayor is in favor of, but it's going to be the most expensive deal in this country, is to tear down and move the stadium, to move it closer to the interstate, and then have a different type of use, where you'd have parking garages and you have multimodal corridors with bus lanes, bike lanes, things like that. And that's what he means when he says adopt the plan. But the vision,
It's 310.
yeah, the vision plan itself is aspirational. It didn't have to be adopted by council. It guides development through the planning department's work. And it has core concepts which are important. And I know I think our next topic is, no, it's not. I can get into a little more, but the mayor and his team of negotiators will bring to council a deal, so to speak. It likely, we expect it before the end of the year, which will include things like financing and what it would look like. But he's kind of looping all this together, where you need a plan and you can accomplish all these glorious things if you build a new stadium over here.
And part of the plan too is that just infrastructure, new roads, water and sewer, all those sort of things.
Yeah.
They're going to have to happen before any development can take place.
Mhm.
And we're going to touch a little further down on more of the East Bank. So if there are other questions about that, maybe that's a good place for it. Right now, it looks like we're at the River Chase development, but I don't see
Right.
Martha. So I think she had some family thing or something.
Well, Mike, I guess I can try to give the best update I can on that work.
Okay.
So I think most of you know, Noah has been part of a work group really over the past 17 months, working to try to impact what happens with what are now former apartments called River Chase in East Nashville. And they've been torn down, and all the people that lived there had to leave. And so we negotiated with the former owner and have been in intense negotiations with the current owner to try to ensure tenants could get some help because they were being pushed out. Help meaning financial help and other services to ensure they were able to get into fit and decent and permanent housing and affordable housing, and then to gain commitments for building some a portion of the housing that's to be built, which is over 1,000 units, a portion of those set aside for affordable units. And the council member for that district, Councilman Sean Parker, is a neighborhood guy, and he really had strong feelings about, yet again, more people being pushed out of their homes when developers come in to redevelop. So he really conditioned his approval for a zoning request change because the developer, under current zoning regs, they can't build any more than about 220 units, and they want to build 1,000 plus units. So Councilman Parker has allowed time over a period of months for those talks to take place and for there to come out of that, what's called what's called a community benefits agreement. And that those initiatives take quite a bit of time, quite a bit of work, people power, brain power to make happen. And So when we reached an impasse, we being this team of people, including myself and Martha Carroll, reached an impasse with the developer, then they decided to find another nonprofit to sign an agreement with, and they did, but the agreement was quite weak and it favored developers and owners over the community. And so there was a, at the October council meeting in the first of the month, there was 2 hours of testimony, both on the for side. They wanted council for side, they wanted council to approve the rezoning request. And on the opposite side, they were against it or wanted to speak publicly really about what's happened to people, whether they've gotten help or how much or not, and the impact again on our community. So as a result of that, and where the weaknesses were in the legal document. So as a result of that, council voted again in favor of a motion from Councilman Parker to defer for 2 meetings so he could have an opportunity to speak again with community residents, particularly those that were affected and were from former tenants, and hear from others in community about other things. I think he was hoping to buy time, but the developer who thought, I think, that they could, that they had enough votes, realized that, well, maybe they didn't, because council stood behind Councilman Parker. And so now the developers reached out again to me to sit down again about particularly the legal document, the agreement itself, to try to reach some agreement on it. In Tennessee, you cannot, by state law, condition a zoning change on requiring someone to do affordable housing as a result of getting zoning change. You can't do that, it's against the law. And even council members are cautioned against by Metro Legal Department from going in, even having conversations with developers about these community benefits agreement, because it could be looked at as a violation of the law and could be subject to be sued. And one of the, this particular company is the 6th largest company in the country, in the nation, that does this type of work. And so it has lots of money, deep pockets to pay lawyers and public relations firms and lobbyists. We don't have any of that. It feels like David and Goliath, but I'll just stop right there. And that's where we were. That's where we are. I do believe probably, you know, this chapter will close, at least for this particular project. But what we're trying to do is think long-term and advocate around particularly East Bank development for strong benefits with members of the communities that have real teeth and holding power. Yep.
Carlene's got a question.
Yes.
Okay. I thought you said that they told you they wanted to sit down and make a legal document with you. So it didn't sound like it was over. I'm a little confused.
Well, you know, what we've had many lessons learned from this. One of them is you need to take good notes for any conversations and say, oh, you agree to this? Great. It needs to be written down and say, here's what we heard. So we had these conversations starting in July of 2021. And then when we got to putting things down on paper, and you saw the words on the paper, were weak enough that it would allow too many opportunities for developers and owners in the future not to abide by the terms of the agreement.
Well, they haven't asked you since the last vote to sit down again.
Yes, that just happened last week.
Oh, okay. So are we gonna,
Calling time 3:20.
Excuse me?
are we gonna try to do that?
Yes. this week.
Okay, so it's not necessarily over yet.
No,
Oh, good. Because I want
but I
to.
would like for it to be over.
It's been a long journey, and I know, thank you, Patricia, for letting us know it's time to move on. I did want to say that part of this is in the context of all of the different apartment complexes that we have lost. You know, there have been so many affordable housing complexes that have become unaffordable. Somebody bought them and redeveloped them, or sometimes they bought them and put new toilets in and a coat of paint and doubled the rent, you know, so that kind of thing has just gone on and on and on. And in a way, this thing with River Chase has become sort of a symbol of the displacement that is happening all across our city.
Yeah, it's like the canary in the coal mine.
Yeah. And I see Anton has his hand up.
I guess, yeah. So I'm just thinking, like, my perspective is millennial wanting to buy a house in the future.
Yeah.
I'm thinking, how can we create like a streamlined process so that like we're still increasing capacity and density in the city, but have a community benefits agreement, but not like doing this in like 2 months instead of 6 months.
That's actually one of the kinds of things that we're talking to the housing office about. Nashville has never had a housing office like we're talking about, an affordable housing office, until like the last year or less. And we've been pushing for that since 2015. But this is the kind of thing, having some kind of a relatively easy plan for something like this. They're supposed to be coming up with a plan. And right now we've been the ones, along with Stand Up Nashville and the Equity Alliance and some others, that have been trying to negotiate things with this one developer. So there needs to be an easier way to do it. Is that partially what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
I guess in the interest of just building up capacity and density.
Yeah. And we're very hopeful that's what the housing office is going to have some concrete plans about how to do that. And we've been having meetings with them.
Yeah, in fact, one of their staff positions is supposed to be focusing on that very kind of work.
So, so is the houses going to be like when the big developer comes and they want to take out build some new development? Is this housing department person or whoever going to be able to, negotiate with these developers coming in and say, okay, you want to build here? Well, we require ... is. We be something like, if you want to build here, you have 2 options: build so many affordable units in what you're developing, or contribute to the Barnes Fund.
Well, that's one of the problems that Kay was mentioning, is we actually helped get a regulation like that passed in 2015. But the state said, nope, you can't do that. You can't require that of people. So as you know, that's one reason we started talking to people in Memphis and Chattanooga and other places in the state, so we could begin to build the power statewide to get that ability back. They took something from us. The state took something from us that we thought would be a good partial solution to some of the housing crisis that we've got. So no, you can't do that. But there are some other ways that this housing office could work with developers, and they're starting to do that right now. I don't want to get too deep into it because I know we're over time.
Yeah.
All right. We had talked about for us to start sending emails to the Metro Council, just emphasizing how concerned we are about displacement. But since we're running a little late on this agenda, we might want to save that for later. I think that's always going to be appropriate. Kay and Shirley, does that make sense, or do you want to try and go ahead and do that?
Can we put it at the end so we can continue with the agenda?
Sure.
And not run out of
idea.
time. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Our next item is the East Bank Vision Plan. and it is now a policy. And so, Kay, would you mind giving just another quick summary of the East Bank Vision Plan?
Sure. So if you can see this, the East Bank Vision Plan is an aspirational plan. It contains no budgets, no timelines, nothing like that. It's all aspirational. However, it lays out a vision and key concepts that the community has said that we need in regards to development on the east bank of the Cumberland River. And the acreage that it encompasses, thank you, Mike, as you can see there, starts at Jefferson Street and it goes all the way down to the I-24 bridge, past the Korean Veterans Boulevard Bridge. And it's a plan that addresses 4 key concepts that the community said we wanted you to pay attention to, and we wanted focus on specific things that are important to us. So the first vision concept was equitable and affordable. Equity meaning particularly racial equity to address some of the wrongs from the past that have been done in our country. And affordable, we know what that means. So we want affordable places to live and work and play with a multi-pronged approach. It focuses on mobility, good mobility for people to get around in that area without necessarily having to rely only on cars, that the streets have a good connection network, which they don't have now. Community said they wanted safe and simple connections, and that has to do with the transportation system. They wanted to recenter the river as an amenity and bolster resiliency through floodplain and stormwater management. In other words, mitigate flooding. They wanted neighborhoods for Nashvillians, authentic neighborhoods that prioritize the everyday needs of Nashvillians as opposed to what we see now in the downtown area, which is, it looks like prioritizing tourists over those of us who live here. So those are
I just put a link in the chat to a page about the East Bank study. Now, you know, don't try to read it all right now. But
yeah.
The things that Kay was just mentioning, like the 4 big concerns that come out in the study, those are in that page. And this might be helpful for you later when we're talking about the East Bank study. Excuse me, Kay.
Yes, and so the vision plan, as it's now called, had to be adopted. So now it becomes part of the community planning process for the city. And then it provides a way for the planning department to influence or to shape development, instead of development just coming in on one-offs and there's no coordination of it. Then this approach allows the planning department to work in a more proactive way as opposed to reactive way, and for development ideally to be done with as opposed to, and you know, trying to fix problems later on. It has a whole section in the vision plan itself on equitable and affordable East Bank and what that means to people. And so this section now is part of the guiding principles. And so this is where groups like us, NOAA, can and do have now I guess, the opportunity to really hold planning department and elected officials to what it says in this 135-page document.
Time. 3:30.
It is complicated. She just said 135 pages. It is complicated, but I don't know if it helps you, but it helps me think about it. In some ways, it's like building a house. First decision is, did you want to build a house? And so you decide about that. And then the second one, you decide, well, how big is square footage? How many bedrooms? So it's like they have made the decision, yeah, they want to see a development. And now they're slowly figuring out, we need streets, we need infrastructure, we need things like that. And it's slowly getting more and more involved. And so we've got a chance to help influence that.
We did, and we have already, as part of the work, the mayor's task force was asked to weigh in on housing and housing levels of affordability. So we did accomplish this, that on the public land, any housing that's built, at least 60% of it will be for incomes that fall into that $26,000 to $56,000 range. And then the rest, could be market rate. So we have been able already to influence those kinds of decisions. You just have to keep, being diligent and aware.
So we got 60%. They agreed to 60%.
Yep.
Wow.
Well, again, the key there is 60%. What is that 60%? Just because it got the name affordable on it, that doesn't necessarily mean that it is really affordable. That's why we were pushing, trying to get those income levels down. Because for a while, people were talking about affordable housing being up to like $75,000 a year for a family of four.
Yeah, so that's 20% of it is for that level between 61 and 80. So you have to, it just helps when you have a seat at the table, then you get to influence things. Sometimes it takes a while to get yourself a seat at the table, but it also, it gives you that opportunity to then, like those of us that served on the task force, it gives you the opportunity to weigh in. And then when you're in regular meetings with the mayor, you can remind him of those things.
So what was the range again for that 60%?
The income range?
Yes.
It's between 26 and 56, somewhere in there.
Okay.
We can try to get that for you if you'd like. I think Margaret's got her hand up.
Unmute. Okay. So this started out, Kay, you were telling us that this was the East Bank Vision Plan. And then somewhere along the line, it sounded like you shifted to a plan for the entire area, Nashville area or region or something. Are we still talking just about East Nashville?
Just East Nashville.
Okay, all
And
right.
it's just a chunk of East Nashville, 300
Right,
acres.
no,
What is it? 338 acres.
it's just it's just East Bank then.
Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank
Thanks
you.
for asking.
And I think a goal for the Affordable Housing Task Force is to keep affordable housing as a priority, in the elected officials' mind. And, we can use Nehemiah, as a model for us. I was thinking the other day about this when I tend to be old school, and I was listening to this song from 1968. And it was by Curtis Mayfield and the Impressions. And for some of you old school people, you probably know the song, but if you don't, it goes, keep on pushing. We got to keep on pushing some way, somehow. Move up a little higher. you know, to reach our goal. And so for us, you know, using that keeping on pushing means that everyone has a chunk of the wall to rebuild, and that we all have our part to play in this.
That's wonderful. I like that song. We're gonna have to get a recording of it. So, but if you're ready to move on to the next thing, we've been dealing with a lot of technical stuff, and the next thing on our agenda is less technical. It's anybody here ever played Monopoly? You ever played Monopoly?
Yes.
I actually don't like it very much because it takes so long. I mean, you know, it just takes forever to play in it. But I also don't care for it because it is a monopoly. It's about landlords raising the rent. It's about, you know, trying to get a hold of more property. Well, we have a chance to play a different kind of game, a game of rent that somebody that Kay and Shirley and several of us know, Kelly Osman at Urban Housing Solutions, Kelsey Osman, has developed. And I want to show you what this game is very briefly. And we think it would be a really fun thing and very educational to be able to play this together in person. Now, what I've got here is this is just a 2-minute, can everybody see this?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
This is just a 2-minute explanation of it, but it gives you some idea of what's going on. Now, oops, hang on just a second. There was one more button I had to click. I always forget to do that when I'm sharing a video. Okay. Now let's see if I can get this 2-minute thing to work here.
The game of rent helps break down the jargon,
It's not very loud.
around affordable housing. This gamified teaching tool
Can you turn it up?
help housing advocates
That's as loud as I can get it.
with
Okay.
builders, developers, and decision makers in their community. In the game of rent, players put themselves in the shoes of someone looking for an apartment. Each player starts by drawing an occupation card, which gives the average salary for that location. A roll of the dice determines who else lives with you. Will you be a single parent of 2 kids?
What's the big
Or
black
maybe
thing
you're
there?
a young professional with a few roommates, or a couple caring for an aging parent. Life cards add other factors of housing access, like eviction records, transportation challenges, or physical disability. Players then take turns drawing neighborhood cards until each person can find somewhere they can
Can't
afford to
see
live.
it for a big black square,
Players can
man.
also join a wait list for housing
Yeah, I have a
assistance,
big back
and
square
optional
too.
variations include gentrification and cost burden simulations. The reality is that the rent is too damn high for almost half of American renters.
I
But
can't
that
hear it.
statistic is far less powerful than drawing a housekeeper card, having 3 children, accounting for an eviction record, and trying to find a 2-bedroom apartment for under $600. The game of
We
rent
all
aims
can't
to
see how they're
simulate what
developing,
members of our
they
communities experience
distributing the
with housing
cards.
access when looking for somewhere to live.
I have a
Challenges
big
are
black
different in
box
cities
on my
across the
screen.
United States.
Mike, you may be muted.
We see you, but we don't hear you. We don't hear you, Mike.
We don't hear you, Mike.
Mike, we can't hear you.
Well, I'll talk while we're waiting to get him back. So the game of rent was created by an architect here in Nashville named Kelsey Osman. She was a Rose Fellow with the Enterprise organization, a big national organization. It is Nashville based. It's based on realities here in Nashville, wages that people have, jobs, incomes, that sort of thing. And you saw those different colored cards. I think Shirley, red, blue, yellow, and I forgot the other one.
Right.
And those are things that affect people in a long life's way, particularly people with very low incomes and very little reserves and safety nets around them, and what happens to them when those life moments happen in their lives, consequences of it. It's a way for others who may not have those lived experiences to better understand what it's like and what the consequences are to individuals and families when those experiences happen. So it's all the data is Nashville based data, and it's based on and so it's targeted. This particular game is targeted to Nashvillians, and it's a way for us, all of us, to become better informed and have a broader view of life for people facing these kinds of challenges and the impact on them and their families, if that helps. Typically, it's played with, Kelsey says, the best number is to have 6 people. You can have up to 8. So you have to buy the game, the actual game. It could be, you can do it online, but it's much more effective in person, particularly if you have Kelsey come and kind of set it up and give you the context. And so she has agreed to do that. And we bought, and we bought 6 games. Mm-hmm. So to play in November. And so we thought that would be a fun thing to do to celebrate Thanksgiving, to turn it into a bring a treat potluck and be together as folks in our community. And we were one of the things we wanted to do is create an invitation list, because we'd like to have Nick and Anton. We would really like to have representation from our young adults, and we'd really like to have some representation from elected officials and any other particular people or groups of people that you think you would like to see have this experience.
This sounds like fun. I'm in.
Anton's in.
So is this something that where is Noah's planning to do and try to
in the next housing task force meeting in November? We plan to play this game.
Oh, okay.
We're going to play this game in November. We need a place to have it. Someone has mentioned West End United Methodist because it's easy parking, and they have a pretty good hall. I know Stacy from West End, but I don't know anybody else from West End. So we need a place, and we need key people that you would like to see there play with you.
Are you talking about the 3rd Sunday in November then?
Yes.
So, okay. So November
20th. And I apologize for the low level of the audio. I tried to fix it and made it worse, so I couldn't hear you.
Okay. November 20th. Okay.
Hey, let me know if you need help securing West End. My aunt's the pastor, so I'm happy to make connections.
Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you, Nick. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Nick.
Does West End sound okay to everybody? I mean, it is kind of centrally located.
Yes.
Okay. I can reach out. So November 20th. Well, I'll communicate with UK to figure out the times and whatnot, but.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Y'all like the idea of kind of making it sort of a bring finger food and have a party?
I like that idea.
Yes, I do too.
I'm interested in seeing how this game is played.
I want to see the game.
It's going to be a game, but it sounds like it's going to be fun, but it's going to be educational.
Yeah.
The first time this task force will be together since COVID.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah, that's right, Carlene. I like the idea of getting together and just being in person and having a party.
That sounds really good.
I want to learn. Oh, okay. I want to learn something. I want to play the game of Rent, but I also want to have a party.
Yeah.
I like the idea.
I do too.
I'm in.
All right, got a bunch of thumbs up there. All right, should we just like advertise it and tell people to bring something? Maybe we do some drinks. Is that the best way to do it?
So it's going to be like, we're talking in the afternoon, the same time that our meeting would have been held.
That's what we were thinking, like
So
2:30.
if you made it a little later, it could be a potluck meal, but I don't know whether you want to go that far. That involves cleaning up afterwards, which is
Mhm.
harder.
What do y'all think?
Mike, this is Cheryl Major. This sounds great. With the number of games you purchased, would it be good to purchase some additional ones so that we can increase the number of people if the space would allow?
We can't get the order in time. In order to get these games, we had to, at the price that we got them at, and they were still expensive, about $80, I think, a piece. We had to get the order in like in September. And so supply chain issues continue to be a challenge, Cheryl, and that's the challenge there, that we, time constraints, I don't think, and they would be more expensive because it would be a smaller order.
So
she's doing these around the community.
Okay.
So what we were thinking was to be able to set it up so people, like 6 people are at a table, but some of the rest of us are around watching.
Great.
You know, you might even be able to coach or something.
Yeah, so we would be
Okay.
circulators.
Gotcha. And if this is successful, we can obviously roll it out a little bit more. Huh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Very good.
Who's somebody you want to make sure is there? Who would you like to invite to be there to play the game of Rent? Are there any particular people?
What about Angie Herbert?
Angie Hubbard, the director of the
Yes.
Office of Housing?
Yeah, I think that would be good.
Yes. Uh-huh.
All right.
What about Sean Parker? He
Yeah.
does so much in line with us.
That's a good idea. Anybody else?
What,
I thought
Berkeley
about it.
Allen?
I'm sorry, go ahead, Patricia.
Berkeley Allen, she's seen.
Okay.
Who is the current chair of the Affordable Housing Committee?
Metro,
You're right.
oh, yeah. Who was that?
The Affordable Housing Committee of the Council, you're speaking?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Sean Parker.
It's
I think-
now Gloria Hauser.
Yeah, Gloria.
Invite her.
Okay.
Sledge. That's on
Colby
the,
Sledge,
Uh-huh.
Sledge. Yep.
Any developers
Oh.
that anybody knows that we should bring in?
Yeah, no, that would be interesting if we could get a developer or two there. That could be kind
River
of.
Chase folks.
I don't
Even lives in Austin.
Yeah. That's good. Well, if anybody comes up with other people that you think we ought to invite, you know, we can invite them, and everybody won't get a chance to play, but I think it could be a really good experience. Really
what
good.
about somebody?
Is there some
from
kind of way that
media,
you could
newspaper,
like,
We got 2 people talking at once there. Patricia, what were you saying?
I said, is there some kind of way, you know, everybody can't play, but could you have it on the screen or something where a whole bunch of people could watch?
Oh, no, that's an idea.
You know, put it on
Yeah.
the screen or something,
Well, we'll
so
have
that
students-
everybody could watch how,
Okay.
you know, how the game is played.
Well, go ahead.
There are technical needs. There are, to pull this off. So we need somebody to help with maybe the technical needs. Maybe
Oops,
Nick can
time.
help me with that. We need somebody to help with the potluck side of things to ensure whatever is neaded is there and
We're
set
past
up.
the 3:45.
You know, so we need some volunteers to let us know what need you might be able and willing to work with to ensure that this is a good event, effective.
And Gaines Man was trying to say something there too.
I was just going to suggest that we invite someone from the media, a Tennessean, for example, like, what is his name?
David Plazas.
David
Uh-huh.
Plazas, that's a great idea.
Mhm.
We might get an editorial out of this or
We
something.
might.
Are there any
And I
particular?
was
be happy to help with the technical aspect, okay?
Thanks, Anton. Great.
Go ahead, Shirley.
Yeah, I was thinking about someone from the Urban League, since they're involved in the negotiation with River Chase redevelopment.
Yep.
All right.
Does anyone
Fine.
have a relationship with leadership there that they would like to reach out to and extend the invitation?
I'd like to also invite somebody from the Chamber of Commerce. We've been in some conversations with them, and I think that could be kind of interesting to see if they would come play the game of rent with us.
Mhm.
And any particular pastors, you know, or religious leaders. Okay, well, if anybody else has a brainstorm, if lightning strikes, you know, let one of us know, okay?
Here's one thought. There's a new clinic at Vanderbilt Law School that does focuses on housing for youth, particularly for youth that lose their housing from their primary family. So
Aging out of foster care?
it includes that, but not just that. But
okay.
So
Good.
Jennifer Prusek.
Yes, that's who.
She's the contact for that, Jennifer
Right.
Prusek.
Yep.
Okay. Great. Marvelous. Well, are we ready to go on?
Yes. We are at,
3:51, it looks like.
yeah.
Mhm.
Is there any summing up that we need to do, or you want to go directly to an evaluation here? Good. That sounds like we go to the evaluation. You know the process for the evaluation. Everybody does. What's your feeling as you're leaving the meeting? You know, just go ahead and put it in the chat. Put a feeling word or two in the chat. And if you're desperate, you can use 3. But let's try to keep it to 1 or 2. All right. Nick says excited and energized. Carlene says excited. Margaret says enthusiastic. Now, Patricia, you said exit. Is that?
I meant to put excited. I didn't spell it right and I hit too soon.
All right. Well, you're excited and ready to go. Okay, I got it. Shirley says pumped up. Shirley, how are you pumped up?
You know, just with not only what we've done, but then also looking forward to you know, others getting involved in this game of rent, because I think it'll open so many eyes about the issue here in Nashville.
Great. All right, Margaret, you're enthusiastic. How are you enthusiastic here?
Well, this has been a very informative meeting for me, and it's also been and it's fun to end on the idea of this game, like exactly what Shirley's saying, which is you give people in the room and they can begin to really see what the hurdles are for a lot of people.
Okay. All right. Let's see. Last one, Nick, excited and energized. All right. You took advantage of all 3 words. What are you excited and energized about?
I love board games, so I'm very excited to play this game. But yeah, just overall energized, especially coming out of that meeting a couple weeks ago. And yeah, just excited to do some things.
All right. Sounds good. Second part of the evaluation is how did we do? How did the meeting run? Number 1, did we get accomplished what we needed to accomplish? Do you feel like you're leaving and having had accomplished something in this meeting? Number 2 is, how did the meeting itself operate? Did we get stuck at any point? Were there some unclear things, or were there some wonderful pieces? So just unmute and give me an answer to any of those questions I just asked. How did we do?
We did good.
All right. Why?
Very good. Mhm, mhm.
All right. Who said very good?
It was Cheryl.
Oh, Cheryl. Okay. Was there any?
Ran smoothly.
What'd you say, Grace?
Ran smoothly.
Ran smoothly. Okay.
It was good because I heard everyone's voice today. everyone participated.
Good. And that is important because we're not going to get there with just one or two people, working on this. We've all got to work at some level on this. That's great. Anybody else about our meeting? Was there a high point? Give me one high point.
The rent that
Game.
day.
Game of rent. Okay, something besides the game of rent. We're all in agreement. We're excited about that. Any other high point?
Still
All
much
right.
work, still much things to be found out about the East Bank.
Yeah, I
Okay.
was gonna say that, on River Chase, the fact that the developers are back at the table, I really, I thought we'd lost that one, but I'm really appreciate the fact that that our leaders from NOAA stood their ground, and it looks like they've got them to come back to the table. Now, that doesn't mean we're gonna win what we want, but at
Right.
least
That's right.
we making them listen to us.
And it's so important, even us just doing this is so important because it will set precedent for the East Bank and other things like that. Yeah, go
On
ahead.
that, you said that that they thought they had enough to pass it the last time at council. The developer.
We're evaluating the meeting right now. I
I'm sorry.
shouldn't, it was my fault. I shouldn't have gone into discussing that.
Okay.
Is there one thing you'd like to do differently next time for our meeting, the way it works? Anything to do differently? Other than not have the audio and problems that I was having.
Can you send that video?
Yeah, I'll send that to you. Yeah, I'll send you that video. I am so sorry. It's really pretty neat. The third thing is tension. Where was tension in our meeting? Because we do want tension that makes us move in a different direction. And if there's negative tension, we need to know about it too. Where was tension?
I think about, for me, making, affordability, keeping it in officials, the public officials' mind. To me, that is some tension.
Okay. Anybody else feel any tension in our meeting?
I guess
I think goes with that. I think it just means that helping people understand affordable doesn't mean what seems to be the idea, and a lot of people say it. I'm trying to think, when Kay was talking about 75,000, it's supposed to mean affordable. Then when we keep it in mind, like Shirley, like she said, understanding that everybody doesn't make $100,000 a year, that they still have to live.
So the whole tension of how to keep that real affordability in front of people. And Anton, you were trying to say something too.
because there's also the counter of I'm pretty renting, but I've been saving up to buy a house. Yuppie, like I'm the bad guy in the story. If there's no more capacity built, I'll be driven to push someone else out. So my interest is to build capacity.
Okay, good, thank you. A tension I was feeling in our meeting is there's this tension between all the details and the technical things about some of these things, because some of the things we're talking about are really quite technical. So there's a tension between helping people understand those technical things and overwhelming folks. So, we don't want to overwhelm people. We want it to make it understandable. And so that's just a continuous tension. The political learning, I think for me, the political learning about, and by the way, political learning, you remember, it's where we are in our work in the city. It's talking about where we are. Coming out of last Sunday, I think where we are is we're realizing that when we get in person, number one, there's an incredible spirit there. And you saw it just when we were discussing the idea of playing our game of rent and getting together. When we get in person, the spirit is there. The second thing is when you get over 400 people together, there's a lot of spirit there, and the political figures have to listen to us. So this is where NOAA has been in the past. It's where we're going to be in the future. That's the way that we build our power to make change. So that's all I have. Somebody gonna close us out? I got a closing for us. I love Shirley reading the Nehemiah scripture. And there's one part there where it says, the people said, let us start building. before the people had a mind to work. So how about to close out, can everybody say, let us start building?
Let us
Let us start building.
All right, we got to do it together. We got to do it together. 1, 2, 3. Let us start
Let's
building.
start building.
Woohoo!
Okay,
Okay.
great.
Thanks, everybody.